Hey,
District
Anita.
Governor in waiting, Anita.
Hi there.
And then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I believe uh, our stand-up kind of guy that might be too white for the desert, Mr. Nortonson, will be doing our invocation. So bear with me while I push all the buttons, and we'll get this thing going. No.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would unmute yourself, Mr. Jeff.
Thank you. Former Catalina Rotarian Colonel Bill Perry, who introduced me to Rotary. He owned the Village Inn restaurants in Tucson and loved to ride horses. He was always a presence anywhere he went. And he always had an invocation in his own style. And I offer this invocation today in his memory. Hey, Lord, it's us again, Catalina Rotary. We're still at it. Same four-way test, same attempts to make the world a better place, same hopes that we can all get along. Someone once told me that coincidence is just God being anonymous. So thank you for all those messages over the years. During these days, some days life seems harder than others. We would be most thankful for your help, always. And thanks for listening. Amen.
Thank you, Jeff. I do remember him from years and years ago. So yeah.
That was perfect, Jeff.
That was great. That was absolutely great. So I'd like to welcome, we've got our speaker, Elizabeth. We'll talk about Yodo in a little bit. Let's see who else we have on here. Good to see Michael Merle's still in town visiting, so enjoying the warmer weather before he has to go back east. And I was going to say hi, Allison. That's almost done down at the on the west end of Skyline there. I'll be out putting tubular markers up where the stuff is next week, and we'll be walking out of there and be done with that mess. Couple things, road cleanup. Speaking of Skyline, tomorrow, 8 o'clock in the morning, meet at the 7-Eleven at Skyline and Sunrise. Hopefully we get 8, 10, 12 people can show up. We can break it up into maybe thirds or something and go from there. Finney's doesn't open until 11, so if we want to do some breakfast afterwards, we can probably go over to the Bisbee Breakfast Club. They have a bunch of outdoor seating, so we can go out and have some fellowship that way. Leadership Institute, I put in the wagon wheel again, just as an FYI, if anybody wants to attend to get some updates. T-shirt stuff for the 100 years in Tucson. That's a coordination. Bobby D's kind of helping out with that. And then finally, to give you some information, Kirk Reed, we haven't seen for a while and we haven't heard of for a little while, but he wanted us to share, and so you guys can kind of keep thoughts and prayers with him. He had some surgery on his vocal cords and is now seeing the guy that takes the chemo stuff. And I was going to let Bob had lunch with him this week. So Bob, if you could give us a little bit more info.
Yeah, I had a very nice breakfast with Kirk on Wednesday morning, and he's got a great attitude, but his vocal cords have been giving him trouble, and he found out that he had a malignancy. And so he's going to be getting radiation therapy starting the end of this coming week for a 6-week regimen, 5 days a week. So pretty intense. And so I'm going to put his cell phone number and his email in the chat, and I'm sure he'd love to, hear an encouraging word. And I think one of the reasons that he hasn't been his normal presence is because it's difficult for him to project with his voice a little compromised. So he's got his remarkable attitude intact, but I'm sure he'd enjoy hearing from folks. And he says hello.
Thank you for the update, Bob. Yeah, he's been doing some emails back and forth about 2 or 3 different things. He's kind of behind the t-shirts. There's actually an item we're going to talk about at the board meeting for next year's as a participation in kind of a global grant with the Tohono O'odham Nation and some language preservation with that. So he's doing there. A couple other things I wanted to comment on. If you thanks to our Mr. Nordenson, if you go to YouTube's and look up Catalina Rotary, our meetings are now up on the web if you want to go back and review one, or if you want to go back and say, oh my goodness, I need to whatever. But Jeff has been recording them and then being able to get them posted. So we're kind of out there in the internet land. So that's kind of fun. So thank you with that, Jeff. And then finally, I wanted to make a comment. The Boys and Girls Club Youth Awards is coming up. We actually will get a little bit of an ad in that. Tom, did you have anything else you might want? That's next week, right? If I remember right.
That's tomorrow night.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, KOLD channel 13. I think that's 13, or is it 4? Anyway, sorry. It's 6:30 to 7. And there's a live auction that's up now. And Paul, I sent you an email with the live auction website. So I don't know if you want to send that out to everybody. You can get it if you go to the Boys and Girls Club website. Set up on the live auction.
Is this the old one you said not to send? Send me an update and I'll send it out.
Yeah, I apologize for that mix up. But if you go to the Boys and Girls Club's website, you can set up an auction account. And there's actually a lot of good things in there. Yeah. Including an Adia Barnes basketball. It's worth more today than it was last week. So
it's probably worth more than a men's. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Worth more than it was last year too, because I got the one last year.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah. She did. Women did great this year. It's fantastic. Yeah. I'm sure Sean was jealous. So anyway.
Anyways, tomorrow night.
Okay. Thank you for the update with that. So I think those are the ones on the list here. Tony was going to introduce Elizabeth. Elizabeth was going to talk a couple weeks ago, but we did a whole bunch of shuffling. She has gotten her first shot, so she's well on her way to getting up and vaccinated. Tony does participate as a volunteer with Yodo, and as you guys all know, we have helped Yodo in the past in several areas and efforts. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Elizabeth Slater, and then she can tell us what's going on with Yodo. We're looking forward to hearing from it. But Elizabeth is a youth advocate living in Tucson. She's the CEO of Youth on Their Own, a nonprofit organization that supports high school graduation and basically helping out the teens that are kind of out there alone and by themselves, homeless. Over the past 2 decades, Elizabeth has worked with young youth in the professional and volunteer capacities, and has been an education coach, health advocate, and a safe housing proponent, which is really important with kids when they're at that vulnerable age. She completed a decade of service in AmeriCorps, developing and evaluating dropout prevention programs in urban public schools. She is a professional fundraiser and secured over $900 million in funding for education programs and health services for low-income youth and families. And I think she has definitely a touch for how to help out kids. And in our community, it definitely is a need. So with that, I'd let Elizabeth kind of take over and we'll see what she has to say and where Yodo's going these days. So welcome.
Thank you. That was a great intro, Paul. Thanks. And thank you, Maria Elena, for inviting me. And to all of you, I'm so grateful that you continue to invite Yodo to your meetings and to hear what's going on with our students. So I did prepare a really brief presentation. I will not put you to sleep today, but I did want to tell you sort of, I think it's been almost a year since you had someone from Youth on Their Own at a meeting. So I thought I'd give you an update on what's happening with our students. And then I'm really also here to answer questions if you're wondering sort of what impacts COVID have had. If I don't touch on it in the presentation, let me know. So I'll share my screen and we will go through a few slides here. Okay. I think everyone can see this. Yes, we're good. Okay, so hi, welcome. Thank you. I thought I would just walk us through kind of a year of COVID response because we've now got to the end of the school year almost, and it's almost this entire year we've been dealing with COVID and our students. So let me take you on a walk through here. Here we go. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my. There we go. So just to recap, I know you're very familiar with Youth on Their Own, but these are the 3 things we do in order to support the high school graduation and continued success of youth experiencing homelessness. The first bucket is financial assistance. We allow students to earn a stipend every month if they attend school consistently and maintain passing grades. We're really about education attainment because education is the best tool we have to break the cycle of poverty. So we really want to make sure that homeless youth are staying engaged in school. So basically we pay them to go to school. The top reason they would drop out is to get a job, because if they have to provide all their own basic needs, it becomes really attractive to earn a paycheck instead of sit in an algebra class. So we give the financial incentive to stay in school. And then the second bucket is basic needs. While a student is enrolled in Yodo, they can get free food, clothing, hygiene supplies, school supplies, a bus pass, a bike if they need it, a computer if they need it. But we're really focused on basic needs because a lot of teens who are on their own are not getting that support, the support a family would provide. No one's cooking them dinner. No one's taking them school shopping. So they have needs that we can fill, and that enables them to attend school regularly and stay engaged in school. And the third bucket's really important. It's just as important as money and food, and that's guidance, because a lot of our students don't have a consistent adult in their life who's really encouraging them and asking about their grades and how to do on the math test. And they don't always have an adult they can go to if they run into trouble. And what we found is, one unexpected event can just really derail a student's intention to stay in school. So if they have a trusting adult at Yodo that they know they can talk to, then we can help. We can swoop in and wrap them up in a big hug and figure out what they need at that moment. So it could be paying a huge medical bill that they weren't expecting, turning the lights back on, stuff like that. So we are available to support them along the way and kind of be there to solve big problems that come up. So this past year has been a little wild. So I wanted you to know what's changed during COVID. We became much more focused on the basic needs elements of our service because our students sort of went into survival mode. And so their needs in the areas of food, especially, also rent assistance to prevent eviction, it really skyrocketed. So before a student can even focus on school and succeed in school, they have to have their basic needs met. Otherwise, they're just not going to succeed academically. So we really pumped a lot of resources into the students that are enrolled in our program, making sure that they do have all their basic needs met, which means we really increased the amount of food we were giving out. We added a COVID supplement to the stipend check that we were issuing every month to help them cover some of the unexpected needs. Our students who were working, a lot of the teens who are old enough, they do have jobs, but they have jobs like at the fairgrounds and at restaurants, places where a lot of the work was, facilities that were being shut down because of COVID. So they were really losing the opportunity to earn income. Our biggest challenge this year is enrollment. School under enrollment equals Yodo under enrollment. And this is a huge challenge. This is the from an article on the Arizona Republic in October. Arizona public school enrollment is down 50,000. Where did all the students go? If you've been paying attention in the news lately across the country, but especially in Arizona, schools are panicking a little bit. We've lost so many youth from the school system this year. Some of it might be a parent's choice to keep a kid out of school just because it might be easier for them to manage. But for a lot of students, they're really just falling through the cracks. And I'm sure you can imagine that the types of students that Yodo serves are disproportionately affected by this because they don't have an adult at home who's like, get up, get ready for school. Did you do your homework? Are you doing the reading? There's really no one to follow up with them on a day-to-day basis, and they don't have a consistent place to go to school virtually. So even though Yodo's provided laptops to every student who needs one, they also need consistent internet. They need a table they can sit at with a background that's appropriate for school. They need a lot of things besides just the physical laptop. And so for a lot of students, especially youth experiencing homelessness, they just kind of opted out of school this year, which is such a pity because schools tend to be really the hub for the social services that students receive. Extra support, extra food, anything that a social worker at a school might be able to connect them with. And Yodo is one of the things because we reach our students at school, and that's on purpose because our program is about school. We want students in the school setting. So that's been a huge challenge. And just to give you a sense of our numbers, we've had a 56% decrease in just the number of applications we've even received, which is really shocking because we know there aren't half as many homeless youth right now. We actually think there are probably more homeless youth than last year. So far this year, we've served 720 students, which is great. I'm super happy that we've been able to really support those 720 youth. But in a typical year, by this time in the school year, we would have served 1,500 youth already. And that gap has us really worried because we just know that that means those students aren't in school. That's why they're not connected to Yodo. There's some barrier that they're experiencing that's not enabling them to stay enrolled. So that's a concern. So we actually did some different things this year than we usually would do. We tried to come up with some creative solutions. So we really focused our efforts and resources on 3 strategies to meet the needs of our youth. So the first strategy is we actually just invested resources and time in trying to increase school enrollment in our county, which is very strange. That's not our job. It's not our mission. We don't usually try to recruit kids for school in general. But what we know is that more students in school means more students in Yodo. So we've been working with the Pima County School Superintendent's Office to assist with all of their efforts, and each of the individual school districts has their own effort to get kids re-engaged in school. And so we've been helping with that. The second thing we tried is expanding Yodo eligibility because we were hearing from our school liaisons that there are some students who are living with a non-parent adult in a more stable situation. So it might be an aunt that's like really letting the student live there, and they aren't really in danger of being kicked out, but it's not their parent. So they still might be responsible for some of their own basic needs, or if Yodo wasn't supporting that student, their stability at home might be in danger. So we added a category called stability services, where we're serving students who are not living with a parent, but they're not in immediate danger of homelessness. What we're doing is just stabilizing the home environment that they are in, because a lot of the adults in the families that are hosting them are experiencing also job loss and some economic impacts from COVID that could end up making them turn a student out of the home, even if they were living there formerly. So we sort of expanded it a little bit. We're giving some access to food, hygiene, and school supplies to those students in a stability services category, which I think is a creative way to reach more students. And then third, we invested in some strategic partnerships with other organizations in town. And so I'm going to talk more about this one. Our board of directors actually decided midway through the year to add an item to our budget. We invested $135,000 into strategic partnerships with these organizations that you see on the screen. Each of them for a different reason. And so we have partnership agreements with each with very specific goals that we're intending to achieve. But the rationale is that if a student is experiencing some barrier that limits their ability to get services from Yodo, where are they getting services? Let's find out who is helping them, and let's resource those organizations so that we can still achieve our mission, which is helping our group of young people, even if that goes through another organization. And this was a real mind shift for us, because nonprofit organizations, unfortunately, tend to exist kind of in a Hunger Games mentality, where we have to like really compete for scarce resources. And so we tried something different. We just brought all these people to the table and we said, look, we're willing to put in some funding. Can we work with you on some joint partnerships to serve our youth wherever they are? So if they're getting housing from you, healthcare from you, basic needs from you, let's talk about it and make sure those students are getting support during this time when they are having trouble connecting to Yodo. So that's a really big different thing that we tried this year. So what now? We think that with vaccines rolling out and schools resuming in person, we will see a jump in Yodo applications, though we've been cautioned by the liaisons at school that students who haven't shown up to school all the way to April aren't just going to magically show up now for the last 2 months. So we know that some we're just going to miss until the next school year. Hopefully they'll re-enroll in the fall. But we do think in the next couple months, now that schools are more schools are happening in person, we will get a jump in applications. So we're really hoping the last couple months of the year we can reach some more students. We expect that somewhere between 100 and 150 Yodo students will actually graduate high school this year, which is great. Last year, that number was 377 graduated. So it's right in line with our half as many students, but the ones who are enrolled are really staying committed, and we're really trying to resource them as much as we can so they can really stay in school. So we'll be excited to celebrate with these graduates. And our hope is to resume new normal operations, that's what we're calling it, on July 1st. And so one of the places that our students receive services is through our mini mall, which is at our office. They can come and shop. It feels like a shopping experience, and they can pick out the food they want, the hygiene supplies they want. And right now, the mini mall is only open twice a week for half a day, for safety, and we have really strict COVID protocols. We've actually had quite a few people experience COVID at Yodo, so we've had to be very, very careful. So we hope that by July 1st, we're going to have almost every single one of our employees will be fully vaccinated by July 1. So we will be resuming somewhat new normal operations by then. And the other way students receive supplies from us is that they are delivered to their school through a program called Caring Couriers, which is actually how Tony volunteers with us. Tony drives supplies from Yodo's office to school sites for students. So we are going to start that program again once schools are allowing visitors onto campus. So that will be really exciting. Lastly, I wanted to answer the question, how to help, because I think that is what I will commonly hear during a presentation. How can we help? The first thing is you could definitely help kids reconnect to school. If you know a teen who is missing school, even if they're enrolled but they're just missing a lot of school, help them plug back in. Ask what you can do to help. More students in school is the goal. And that kind of links to the second one, which is another thing you could do to help is to spread the word about available Yodo services. Most youth in our program are referred by someone they know. And so even if you don't personally think that you know any teens experiencing homelessness, probably the teens you do know someone who is. And so the more we just talk about what's available, mentioning it to another adult, and they might say, oh my gosh, I actually just heard about a neighbor of mine is dealing with something. It's so much about word of mouth that really just talking about what's, checking in with people and sharing what's available through Yodo could really help a young person connect to our services. And the third is for folks who are able to make a financial contribution. We have still been accepting donations this year. And next week, we are having an event that's week-long. It's the Yodo Family Challenge, Spring Challenge. You may be familiar, in typical years, we have a luncheon in the spring, but that's not safe to do this year. So instead of doing an in-person event, We're doing a week-long challenge. And each day we're going to share a video of a student and one of our Yodo supporters, and just encourage the community to get involved and kind of join the Yodo family as a supporter. And we have a $50,000 match for any donations that are made next week. So I just thought I'd mention that in case any of you are thinking about making a gift. It does count as we're qualify for the Arizona charitable tax credit. And next week will be a match for any gift the whole week. So yeah, I guess that's the overview. I will stop sharing now so I can answer your questions about sort of what's going on with students. And I will check in the chat to see if there are any, or if you would like to unmute and ask me anything, I'm very happy to answer questions.
Go for it, Steve.
Okay. Hi, Elizabeth. I'll funnel some questions to you. You have one in chat there from Jeff. He is wondering if you deal with situations where you have groups of kids, so maybe they're brothers and sisters or what have you that come to you. So do you have those situations, and how do you deal with them?
Yes, we do. We have a pretty high number of our youth are in a category called parenting youth, which means they're either parenting their own children or they're parenting younger siblings, which is sad, but it's really not uncommon. So we do have groups that come to us, though we really only serve teens. So you have to be in middle school or high school. So if a young person, if there's a child who's truly on their own, we would absolutely contact DCS. We're definitely not encouraging like a 6-year-old to live on their own. But it's very common for older youth, like teenagers in middle school and high school, to be kicked out of the home. Like the top reason is because a parent remarries and the new spouse doesn't like the children. So that's common. And so in those cases, multiple youth might leave the house at the same time. But I'd say most of our youth are really just them. They're not out with their siblings. They're on their own.
Okay. I don't see any other questions at this point. Anybody got anything?
Yeah, I have one in there, Steve.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, Alice came to me direct message, so I'll just read it out loud.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's great. Would your kids have received the government COVID stipends? Some of them did. So if they're 18 and older, they may have received it. The students who are minors, it's very complicated. It's very hard for them to access government services because they don't have a guardian, or the guardian, their legal guardian or parent continues to collect government assistance on their behalf, but they don't live together, so they don't receive it. That's very common for the under 18-year-olds that a parent would have collected any kind of resources, food stamps. It happens with basically anything that you could qualify for in terms of government aid. But for our students who are older, we did try to help them receive the stimulus funding. So some of them did get that, yes. And I see a message.
Do you have alumni, for instance, who kids that have graduated and that you felt that have kind of circled back and lent support to the organization? Any success stories like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for a while now, we've had an alumni program called Yodo Ambassadors, which is like an internship where alumni can continue to be connected with Yodo, and they get some public speaking skills and stuff like that. And then they in turn receive a stipend and food, and while they're transitioning into adulthood. But we realized that, it's not like a switch flips when you graduate high school and all of a sudden you're not homeless and all of a sudden you know how to do everything that an adult does. So a couple of years ago, a donor left us a pretty significant gift in their will, and we established an alumni program officially. So we serve students after high school with sort of like adulting classes to help learn how to save money, how to apply for a job, how to apply for an apartment, stuff like that. And then we also have some older alumni who are still involved with Yodo as board members. We have always at least one Yodo alumni serving on our board. Right now we have 3, which is amazing. So we do try to stay very connected with the alumni who are out. Most of them still are in Tucson. So I run into them constantly. If I'm wearing my name tag anywhere I go, someone's like, I was in Yodo, you know, so they're everywhere, living regular lives. They're really wonderful. But some of them do intentionally stay connected with us and want to help give back and support the teens who are still in high school.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Allison, I noticed you had a hand up and it's down. Did your question get answered or do you have something?
Yes, my question got answered about whether the students are taught financial responsibility and good practices for saving money. So it was answered. Thank you, though.
Gotcha. All righty, a question from Andrew. We had a list of needs at the mini mart last year. What are your current needs? And do you have a list you can send us?
That's a great question. We actually put on hold the practice of accepting large donations at the mini mall, partially because we were trying to limit like the public's exposure and just coming in. We had 7 employees at one time have COVID this year. So it was just like, we were really trying to be very careful so we weren't accidentally passing on COVID to a student, which was really worst case scenario. So we haven't had any large scale efforts like we have in the past. We've done Restock the Mini Mall, which you participated in, and a back to school effort. So it's not gonna look like that for a little while until we are really ready to reopen. Hopefully we'll start promoting opportunities to accept donations of items for the mini mall in the summer when we open back to new normal, and we might have some smaller campaigns to try to help collect some school supplies before the school year starts. But we're not really doing, we do accept donations of goods on Mondays. So if you do have something that you think you want to donate, but we're not coordinating kind of like big efforts as we have in the past for donation drives until we really just have a safe way to do it. And we'll definitely share with you the information about that once we are able to resume it.
Okay. We had a question from Anita. Excuse me, what type of accountability measures are in place with new partners?
Anita, do you mean with the nonprofit organizations that I mentioned? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great question. So for each of them, we signed a partnership agreement with a scope of work that has really specific kind of outcomes or what they're doing with the funding. So for example, there's a great organization in town called IMU 360 that gives like culturally appropriate hygiene supplies to young people, to teenagers who are homeless. And so some of our youth were accessing supplies through her because they weren't enrolled in school. So we had just a really structured agreement for how much she would distribute and stuff like that. So for each partner, it's different accountability, but they each have a sort of set of goals that they're working toward. And then a report will be submitted to us next month. So we can kind of collect all the outcomes and share what we did, how the partnerships really made a difference, how many youth were served through it, how many were then referred back to Yodo and enrolled back in school. So we're going to collect that data so we'll know if it was effective, then we might want to do it again in the future. It doesn't just have to be a COVID thing. This could be a great way to serve our students collaboratively with some funding as part of the package. So
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Norm asks whether Yodo connects with Pima Community College to help kids continue their education. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes. So our graduates who decide to go to college, I'd say Pima is the top choice for them. We do have students who go straight to the U of A, and they have great scholarships and they have a program called Fostering Success. Pima has been a little bit, the support offered at Pima has been spread out a little bit more within the school. So I met with them last month to try to clarify, maybe they could have one person that is kind of the point person for Yodo youth or homeless youth in general who are enrolling there. So we're working on trying to develop that, modeling it after what we see at the U of A, be really successful. Pima is the top choice for our students. So a lot of them go there. We have college scholarships. So any student who's an alumni who's going to college can apply for money from us. And we also help them obviously access any federal aid that they can get and other scholarships through Pima or through the U of A or a trade school. We also have scholarships for trade school if that's what they choose to do too.
Great, thank you. I don't see anything else unless, so if there's nothing else, I'll turn it back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Sir Steve. Great job. Appreciate it. I was gonna say, Elizabeth, keep us in mind when you open stuff back up, because I know a lot of us want to participate. I remember the drive-throughs and people opening the trunks and getting stuff out of the, and you taking the stuff inside, and yeah, you kind of the spacing and so on like that. But yeah, keep us plugged in, because it's definitely fits with youth and what we're trying to help out within the community. So, and also in your honor, we will donate 10 inoculations for polio. It's just something that kind of Rotary does, and we're almost there, but every little bit helps, and so we'll chase that one out for you too. But thank you for the information and the update, and it's good to hear that it's a good program. I really am sold on it, so I think it's a good thing. So it's also tax credits, tax season. You don't have to pay your April 15th taxes until like May. So you got a little bit more time. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but not estimated though.
That's right.
For all
Yeah.
the accountants in the room. So anyway, but yeah, appreciate you updating us and so on like that with what's going on. You're welcome to stick around. We're going to go through some general club stuff now, and but you did good. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much again for having me. Yeah, I think I'll jump off because my next meeting's at 1. So I will prepare for that. But I really appreciate your time, and thanks for having us again. And I definitely will keep in touch with you when we open back up for donation drives.
And hydrate ahead of your next shot.
Yes, thank you for the tip. Okay, thanks everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. So next on the list, I think Mr. Norm. I saw him with a little puppy dog and his wife this morning, walking out in the nice cool morning. But I think he's going to become a sergeant and try to collect some shekels for the club. So Mr. Norm.
We're going to try. So yeah, it's a dog eat dog world, and I feel like what did Norm say on Cheers? I'm wearing milk bone underwear. So if you don't have a Rotary pin like this or similar, you might want to consider sending something to Andy. Remember, Andy's mailman, and I talk quite often, and he is very lonely. He's saying that he understands Andy's out of town, but he'll be back, and he sure would like to be able to load up with some mail from Rotarians bringing him checks. So I have a question. Who on the call, raise your hand if you want the vaccine and you got it. All right, so all of us that have done that, I suggest that we send in a minimum of $5. I think $25 is a more appropriate amount to Andy so that we can have for maybe make a donation of Polio Plus to inoculate other people. So that's the thought. Allison, I saw you got your first shot. Congratulations. And let's see the next thing. Oh, you know, my hair is getting a little long, the hair that I have. So if you did not get a haircut during the pandemic, and I mean not, you maybe got one or you got two, but if you did look back and if you didn't get a haircut occasionally, that savings, I think, could help us grow our club. And so you might want to consider whatever that savings was and send that also to Andy. I'd appreciate that. Sharon.
Does that count for beards like for Andy?
Yes, that counts for beers like Andy's. Absolutely. So he can send a check to himself. Sharon, I notice that you're getting kisses and they're not from Al. Would you explain what's going on here? I'm a little confused.
Most everybody knows Tucker, one of our dogs. He's so sweet.
Yeah, I saw he was loving on you. So
yeah, he does that a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to go to next is birthdays, and it looks like, you know, one of the things I've always noticed is that many people on their birthdays decide not to join us for Rotary. Is Dick Carlson there? I didn't see him today. Is he here?
I didn't see his face, but I saw his screen.
I'm here.
Hey. Okay, well, Dick, what do you got to say about having another birthday and how much you're going to cough up?
Well, I don't know. What's the going rate?
Woo.
Well, let's see, your birthday times the square root of 9 divided by 4. How about, half leg up?
Why don't I do a whole leg up?
That's wonderful.
I like
Your
that
math is
guy.
better than mine. Thank you.
I like that guy.
The inclined
Yeah.
village.
Yeah, I'll send it in like I usually do.
Okay, thanks, Dick. And Jack Aaron isn't with us today, but his birthday was on the 3rd. And James the Lesser. James the Less.
Yeah, that's me. I put 67 revolutions around the sun. So I'll send in a half a leg up and maybe throw in a couple more since our 12th grandchild is visiting here in Arizona this week.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Thank you. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So let's see, and anniversaries, I was over to see Tom Jones today to figure out how much I'm going to contribute to help with the national debt. So I know he's not going to be on our call. And I haven't seen M. Craig or Steve, or I mean, M. Craig, obviously not Steve. Okay, so since Andy kind of opened it up to Happy Bucks because he's happy his grandchild is there with him, how about Happy Bucks? Anybody's got something they'd like to share and make a contribution reflective of how happy they are?
Look,
Joan.
I've got money burning a hole in my pocket. You need to
I
talk
like
to
it.
me.
Okay.
The club doesn't know that my birthday is Monday and I'm needy of attention. And I like the idea of making a leg up because I'm not going to tell what year I'm celebrating. But I'm happy about the fact that I'm here to celebrate. So I'm going to make the leg up to the Rotary Foundation. But because of my happiness on my miracle story of getting my doggy back, I'll make a donation to the club in her honor. When I get out my checkbook, I'll see how much I can afford for that.
Okay, well, that'd be great because not only Andy has a mailman that's lonely, I understand Al Chester has a mailman that's lonely. So if you're sending something to the foundation, you can probably send it to him.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do
Okay.
that.
I'll let you figure that out.
Make
Anybody
it
else?
to the Rotary Foundation, but send it to Al to be directed. And then
Yes.
to the club foundation, we send to Andy.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
or you can put both checks in the same envelope and send them to me.
Yeah.
I don't trust him.
Yeah.
Okay, I might, since it's a business deduction now, I might be able to afford 2 stamps, but
Oh, and Joan, the club will know your birthday on the wagon wheel next week. It's been entered, and I just guessed it at a year. I think I put down the year 1990, 1995, or something like that. So
you're my hero.
Paul.
Again, just because I'm needy of attention, otherwise I wouldn't have made a big deal out of it, but I'm lonely these days.
Paul just, I think, slightly failed the 4-way test, at least one phase of that. So maybe maybe our president needs to send a check to Andy also. Andy, you had your hand up.
Yes, I am going to send in a contribution to both organizations on behalf of Pam's very successful back surgery this week in Chicago. And she's on the mend. So I am a very happy camper.
Awesome. Awesome. All our best to her. Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Norm.
thank you, Norm. Thank you, Sergeant. Again, let me remind you, road cleanup tomorrow, 8 o'clock. You can model your orange or green vest. Both of them just look gorgeous in this time of year. Some blend in better with the bushes than others. You'll look and see Pete Walsh, his address, it's a little bit different than what I had in the club information, so I'm going to look at that up, is in the chat. And then also the information about the Boys and Girls Club is in the chat. And then Andrew and Kirk's phone number is in the chat, and his email, his Gmail account, if you want to send him a note. And finally, Andy's address is in there too. So it's just it's a nice thing to make, if you have room on your screen, to bring it up as a secondary screen, just kind of see what's going on. And now for the thank you for Jeff for our invocation. I do remember, and yeah, you nailed it. It was good. It was good to hear. And let's see. Oh, I introduced. So Norm, thank you for the great job at Sergeant. And a couple things of interest. In 1867, the U.S. ratified the treaty with Russia for some little place up in the northwest, Alaska. And that wasn't too bad of a deal. It's gorgeous up there. If you haven't made it, you should try it. And then here's something I'll bet everybody has flown on. Back in 1967, the first Boeing 737 was rolled out. So how about that for an interesting day in history? And they've maybe they've got it figured out now, but yeah, they've had many, many models, and that's kind of a common plane you see these days. Also, it's National Unicorn Day.
All right.
Yeah. And here's the most fun one: National Rename Yourself Day. How about that one? So everybody, we all need to change our names and see if we can recognize who we are, but just some fun things. Next week, we have Eric Caldahall, I believe is how you pronounce it. I think he's going to be talking about ancients and history, old stuff around Tucson, archaeology stuff, if I remember right. That's what I think I looked up and found out. But, so we had a little bit of old Tucson last week. We're going to have a little bit of older Tucson next week. So something to, and if you have done any studies about what's going on in the with the way things have developed here, what they found out as far as the old farm fields and things like that. When they did the wastewater plant up at Ina, they found all kinds of canals and so on. So this place was a really fertile thing for back thousands of years. So it's really kind of an interesting, if you're into any of the little bit of history about what's going on that's been in this basin over the years. So it should be fun to listen to what we hear. And as a wrap up, nice phrase with kids. We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Something to think about with helping with Yodo and all the efforts that we try to take out and try to push. So I hope everybody's safe. Get your shots. I think it's opened up to, I think everybody in the club probably meets that 16-year-old threshold now finally. So get out there and get your shots and be safe, everybody. We'll see you next week. Hopefully we'll see a whole bunch of you on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. Take care.